No matter what anybody's thoughts are on this movie, I think we can all agree adding Trey Parker, it was a pretty sweet idea. Alright, so Despicable Me 3 is the third installment in the Despicable Me franchise, and the next chapter about the character Gru, played by Steve Carell. And in Despicable Me 3, Gru is on the trail of Balthazar Bratt, who's a notorious villain and a pretty stylish dancer to boot. When he gets embarrassed, he gets fired from the agency that he works for, and suddenly Gru finds out that he has a long-lost brother Drew. So Gru, his wife Lucy, and the three kids pack their bags and decide to go meet with his brother Drew. And we have ourselves a fun family adventure that, in my opinion, is a little bit of a mixed bag, because for every good thing that I loved in Despicable Me 3, there was something that I found kind of negative about it. But I'm not generally a negative person, so let's start out with the positives. First of all, Trey Parker as Balthazar Bratt. Adding Trey Parker to this movie was genius, and by far, every scene that Balthazar Bratt is in is my favorite part of the movie. This guy is electric, he's funny, and for a story like this, he also had a pretty solid reason for doing the things that he was doing, aka the makings of a really entertaining villain. Also, the dynamic between Drew and Gru I found very interesting. The way Steve Carell gave different personalities to these two different characters was very cool on screen, and it allowed for some very interesting questions. For instance, if you had a long-lost sibling and their personality was so polarizingly opposite from yours to almost an annoying degree, what would you do in that situation? Personally, I know I can't say, but that's because I don't have any long-lost siblings. And oh my gosh, how can we not talk about the animation? The animation in Despicable Me 3, frankly, is some of the best animation I have ever seen. Do you remember in How to Train Your Dragon 2, where we got that landscape shot of Eric and his crew sailing away from what appeared to be an iceberg, and everybody was like, oh my gosh, that looks so realistic? There are a few shots like that in Despicable Me 3, be it either forest, water, or something as simple as an action figure. Seriously, the cinematography in this movie is out of control. But unfortunately, now we have to get into the negatives, and the biggest one is that this movie feels really cluttered. For instance, there are a couple of subplots in this movie that could have easily just been taken out. The first is the biggest problem I have always had with the Despicable Me franchise, and some people might consider me jaded because of it, but the family aspect in this movie is just so utterly useless. But the fact is, unlike a movie like, say, Meet the Robinsons, where the whole point of the film is about family, the family in Despicable Me doesn't really feel like it adds anything to the plot. And now let's talk about the Minions, because although I thought their part in this movie was absurdly entertaining, I also felt like it was kind of disjointed and kind of a waste. For 90% of the scenes that they're in, they're on their own. And because of the girls and the Minions, the movie as a whole ultimately feels like a chef was reaching for oregano and Italian seasoning and missed, and instead putting cayenne pepper and cumin. But if those two plots would have been taken out, the movie would have definitely been cut down to at least 80 minutes, but I guarantee you, it would have been much better. Look guys, what it comes down to is that Despicable Me 3 is a fine, safe, family adventure with some really great animation. I was going back and forth on it, whether I should recommend it for this or not recommend it because that reason, but I think I can push this one, so I'll say that Despicable Me 3 is a casual watch. But I swear, if you pay more than matinee price for this, you are going to regret it. But as always, it is what you guys say that matters. So have you already seen Despicable Me 3? And what did you think of it? More importantly, what is your favorite film inside of the Despicable Me franchise? Leave a comment down below telling me your thoughts. And if you like what you've seen here, and you want to see more, click right there and subscribe and become part of the fray of nerds who love cinema. You all have a fantastic day.